to building legitimacy, and from perceiving citizens as risk to empowering them as solution bearers. I could go on. The key messaging is that we would have to develop very innovative and practical solutions to address the challenges that we face in the Sahel. It's a powerful call, a new governance compact that will define the future of the Sahel. Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, that one of the key takeaways had to do with visionary leadership. Today will be panel for today will be the art of leadership, and this will be a conversation. Nigeria, His Excellency Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, and we moderated by the Assistant Secretary General of UNDP, Assistant Administrator and Director of the Regional Bureau for Africa, Madam Amuna Eziokonwa. Please, ladies and gentlemen, please give Madam a warm welcome to the podium.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all sufficiently stimulated after yesterday. It's really a powerful co-creation of intellectual insights, but also hearty recognition of needs in this region, needs in the world, and the fact that together there's actually the possibility of making change happen. So it was an optimistic day, even as we registered the challenges. Today, we're going to have a conversation on, I think, one of the core elements of governance, which is leadership. Mr. President, I think we're very honored to have you in our midst. You know, one thing that happens when you become a president, there's a huge distance between you and people, because you are very much protected. People don't have any kind of insight. They don't have the inside look in your room. When you become a former president, it really becomes possible to get some insights on what it means to be on that seat. And I want to thank you for making yourself available. It's important that we understand, because often we have a lot of guesswork about what leaders are going through, about what drives them, about, why, how, what. So today we have an exciting hour together with this Mr. President to get into some of these nitty-gritties of leadership. Get me on this one. Is it okay? So I'm going to kick it off with a question that's been on my mind about you, Mr. President. That question is about what's in a name. Good luck. I'm very big on names, and I don't know why your parents named you Good Luck, but it seems to me your name has kind of been fundamental in your trajectory. If I'm not mistaken, you were deputy governor of your state. Something happened to the governor and you became governor. And then you were vice president. something happened to the president and he became president. Is that good luck? Or is there something else going on there, Mr. President?
Thank you for starting with this angle, because my trajectory into politics by some well, if you talk about the relevance of the name, if you talk about the relevance of the name as a Christian, I know that names are significant. Because if you go through the scriptures, if the child is born and God wants that child to do a particular thing, sometimes direct to rename the child, call him this, call him that. That means that there's something. Maybe philosophically, maybe traditionally, we give children good names in terms of wishing them well, hoping that they will live by the day. But in reality, it doesn't go that way. From my village alone, small community, good locks or lucky and things like that. But it's only my own that manifests. So getting the name good luck alone may not necessarily, you must also have to do certain things to make sure that what your parents expect from you materializes. Thank you.
So the luck did not start to manifest immediately, because you've often said that you grew up without shoes, without bags to go to school. You trekked, as we say in Nigeria, many miles to get to school. You studied under lanterns, there was no electricity, and this child without shoes rises to become the leader of the largest country on the African continent. What do you think those days, those early days of being without, how do you think that shaped then the quality of leadership that you delivered? Did it make you more compassionate? Was there really, just sort of walk us through a little bit how living under those conditions, that being your formative years, your beginnings quite poor, and then rising to that level when you then land at your desk on day one as president of Nigeria. Did your upbringing have shaped how you deliver as president?
And definitely it does. Because when you go through my kind of life history trajectory, from nothing to it all, that's supposed to humble you. So if you see the next tribe, the next person, and if that person is still low, you should know that if you are able to get up from that level to the peak, that child too can get to the peak. That really helps you in terms of your relationship with people. No matter what you say about president, I'm more person, I'm more people. Because I was not born with silver spoon man. I grew from the gutter, kind of, in a rural setting. So it was the divine providence that Nigerians voted for me and become the president. So that humbles you. And that makes you to have that patience to listen to people and find issues properly or take the decision. And it compared to probably people that were all silver spoons in the mouth. Something that was specially created come and oversee human beings. You can see how some national government, like the leader of the capital state, in some of the countries you have the government integrations. Even if you have an idea about what happens in the executive council meeting, it's a monologue. The person at the head alone talks, and after announcing, you leave. The the commissioners or ministers virtually have no input. A couple of my governors, ministers, as a president then, any issue that comes up on the floor of the Executive Council, I expected everybody to interrogate that issue very clearly. There are issues that I mean have taken a decision, but sometimes a memo is getting late for that. President has taken approval, so that's what I'm going for it. Some has, but when I think the executive president approves the memo, there's nothing that way. But then it must still come to council for ratification. And sometimes when you see some of my ministers tearing that memo, you'll be surprised. That's it. It's allowed so that the minister that brought that memo should know that there were some issues that were not properly done. That's subsequently you will do it properly. It's not so you don't just run a system as a president or a graduate. You see orders as mere matter, and you are a superior people. But that will love the world. So to me, my hope is bring it from scratch, help and help we.
So please let's avoid presidents with silver spoon. Experience of the majority of the people, but I'm sure that that's not the only thing that makes you deliver from a compassionate and accountable perspective. There's also character and all of that. And we'll get a little bit to that in a second. So, Mr. President, we in UNDP, we support elections, right? We are there all the time to support elections to be fair, free, and stable. And I have to say, as a UN official who's been in this country when elections have been held, the biggest issue is not elections. It's accepting the result of the elections. And there we sort of brace ourselves for conflict, for violence, because culturally, in a lot of these elections, it seems acceptance is a real issue. And then, as a result, we have a lot of instability. Electoral violence on the continent is quite basic. You stood out when you conceded an election even before the results. And I think the world was watching because we know that Nigeria is very vulnerable to violence because it's a multi-ethnic society as well, and sometimes elections can go that good. So any little spark could sort of lead to huge violence. But you stood out and you conceded. Can you sort of narrate to us a little bit what that moment was like? What pushed you to get to that point where you say, I'm going to concede, despite the fact that I'm sure there were constituencies, because as a leader, you're not standing alone. That you are representing the party and there's a lot of interest. So I can imagine that there was a lot of pressure. But regardless, you stepped out. It's time what?
Thank you. Just like you mentioned, as a leader, especially as the president of the country, taking decisions are very complicated issues because the decisions you take don't affect only you, but affect so many people. And a complex country like Nigeria, where ethnicity is always there, religion is always there. When you are taking certain decisions, especially politically related, affects the people that work with you. It affects the ethnic group. It affects the people who have the same faith. So there's so many things. But even at that, the president must take very hard decision as long as you're convinced that that is in the best interest of the people. Even that decision will cost you personally. When you mentioned the issue of the elections, I think I gave you a copy of my book in Ghana. If you read a section of it, I mentioned what was going through my mind those last hours leading to the elections, and for me to concede the bid and call late General Buhari to congratulate him even before the election was formally announced. One thing can guide anybody to take such decisions. First and foremost is the motive that takes you to politics. Why did you get into politics? On the average, I can say probably more people get into politics because they want to make money. If that is the driving motive for going into politics, then you wouldn't want to leave the office. You prefer to die there in the office. So if that is not the reason, you want to serve the people. Hello? And you notice that things have changed. And if you don't take certain decisions, it will affect the very people that you want to serve. In Nigeria then, I knew as a president that the country was very tense. And it would have led to killings and destruction of private property. And when I look at the whole scenario, I felt that no, it's not about being the president of Nigeria. In line with my slogan, very big campaign, that my political ambition to be president of Nigeria is not what's the brother of Nigeria. So I have to take that decision to make sure that we protect people's assets. Because we worked hard for that 5 years that I was president of Nigeria. We encouraged local and foreign investments in the country. And I can sit down and watch people vandalizing and destroying the investment in the name of political conflicts. Like we see what is happening in South Sudan, what is happening in Sudan, and these countries are being degraded because of leadership struggle. And I think Nigeria should not pass through that trajectory as a nation. And so it was easy for me to take that decision. It was not too pleasing to everybody. And of course, people want to play suffer because of that decision. But still, I'm happy today that I took that decision. To protect the investment of Nigeria. And I think people, Nigerians even appreciate me more now than when I was in office. What is the issue of being a president for? Anybody can be a president. But when you become a president, what do you leave behind? What do people remember you for? That is fundamental. Thank you.
Okay, so you worship, and it needs this sense of thought. Leaders are actually made by people, and unfortunately, in the context of Africa, we revere this position, perhaps to the extreme. How does that make you feel when you stand up, a million people around you stand up. They're literally like, hey, Oga, you're sort of there, and does that...
One key thing about what I notice is there's a slight difference between corruption, commitment, and greed. greatest problem we have in most of our countries is greed by leaders. Not necessarily heads of state alone, even those who have the opportunity to head departments of government. It's greed that can make somebody steal money that he will not spend. If you read this book written by one British journalist, Richard Dowden, published in 2008, read the section on Nigeria. It talks about corruption like little God, deity. Some people like to be worshipped, and maybe that is one of the things that make it completely different. I hate it. I don't like that. In fact, those who have worked with me when I was in office, from the state to the center, and even those who are still working with me in the long way of life, my executive directors there, my medium source, I hate a situation where this hero worship, where you begin to worship leaders as if they are not human beings. And that gets into the mind of leaders, and they begin to play the role of God, yes. Maybe the kings can play that role because they are. But to me and the mere mortal, I hate it. So that's fundamental.
How would you, as someone who's been on the other side,
to be hero worship, but some of them want that. And if you do, of course, you will not be accommodated. So you have to do. And sometimes it takes a caution. There is this somebody told me funny thing that has nothing to do with political leadership. A man in Nigeria we know you will not like chief this and that. And somebody wanted to see the man that was the chief or something. I got to the house, knocked, the wife came and opened the house, and the man said, I want to see, let's say, Jonathan, I want to see Mr. Jonathan. Then the wife just shouted at the man, there's no Mr. Jonathan in this house, and bang!
So they don't, kind of use corruption as some kind of abstract term. We're talking about people stealing what doesn't belong to them. But maybe let's come to a moment that is a little bit personal here in terms of your confrontation of this issue. Because we also know not all leaders in Africa are accumulating wealth or are there to accumulate wealth. Some have been able to use their leadership influence to fight corruption more successfully than others. In a country like Nigeria, obviously with the complex layers, it's a federal system. You have state-level corruption as well, and you have local-level corruption. In your moments of frustration, because, at the time you took office, as you reflect on maybe some of the things you succeeded on and some of the things that you failed on, in hindsight, what is the secret of addressing this issue on the African continent?
Thank you. Of course, you raised the issue of maybe for GDP then and the level of poverty. Of course, the issue of corruption. Even when I was in office, there were some scandals about corruption. Maybe trying to be diplomatic, you don't want to ask me directly. I would have loved that you asked me directly so that I can give you some perspective. But a number of issues. First and foremost, yes, Africa is a rich continent. We say potentially rich. But wealth in resources will not create wealth for the people until you are able to exploit these resources in our natural environment to meet some change. And yes.
President, in the case of Nigeria, and what were the issues?
For example, yesterday when I spoke, mentioned briefly, but first and foremost, there are two levels of poverty. The multi-dimensional poverty, that was people are extremely poor. These are most most cases, Christians, people who have no skills, probably not even educated. And for you to make sure that you get out of that level, you must look at what dominates the local economy in the various areas and encourage this. In Nigeria, we are a agrarian society, and that's why we did very well in agriculture. If you interview Akin, the president, the ADB president, they will tell you what we did. It was because of what we did in agriculture that made him to a. But that was my directive to any of the ministers at that point. We cannot continue to export raw material. Go to Nigeria, go to a state like Zamfara State, where the poverty level is quite high. Out of school, population is quite high. When I was in office, it was about 70% of children were not going to school. So you can see the level at which people operate. But you have pools. And people from other nationalities, from what you see, are just using the locals to steal and sell it out of the country. So until we are able to exploit our own resources, add value to our own resources, and export finished produce, we cannot just claim we are rich, we are poor. That is clear. Then when we talk about, maybe you talk about issues of corruption in Africa. Yes, though sometimes some of these corruption issues that we read in the papers are somehow blown out of proportion. Let me give you an example. To me, when I came into office 2011, I signed the Freedom of Information Bill into law, passed a law to give journalists and civil society free access to get any information you want to get from any department of government. Somebody who wants to be stealing money will. It's a criminal offense. We did that. When we were to celebrate, from 2010, when we were to celebrate 50 years of our independence, 20 years of Nigerian independence, that's something I did with my cabinet. Probably if my governor here, maybe if he had that meeting that he would remember. I bought this book written by Richard Gambia called Africa, Alter States, but not in and talks about all kinds of things across. It's a British journalist that has been covering Africa since 1975. But it talks about Nigeria, life in Lagos, corruption in Nigeria, and so on. I bought that book and presented to council members, and I also bought this Singaporean man's book from Touch to First, and it by you also. Yes, I said, then I asked them to read a section on Nigeria, especially from Richard. So I told them that this program will have a conference like this, but we are going to invite that man to be the keynote speaker. And my own minister said, President, no. This man that finished us, no, you cannot break him. I said, the man did not finish us. We must invite him, let him come and speak. Let us know the perception of people about us. Some may general perception, some may be. Let us know the silver spot. Well, as a secretary president, I first told my ministers, we invited that man.
You did an executive order.
Then I also invited one lady, a white lady from South African journalist that wrote a book based in Korean politics. This is our turn to talk. You know this lady, Michelle, yes, strong, as one of the panelists. Kenya and Nigeria have some similar attributes in terms of certain things. And my minister was looking at me. I said, they must come. We must interact with them. And we had a conference. That said that when he got the invitation, he was surprised that probably the president is inviting him so that the president will hurt him. Because of one thing, when the IOC, the operators remove their own and so on, what the government and cannot go to that, within that time. It's a lot of money. Later on, when there was so much talk about it, they changed it to 12 billion, later it changed to 20 billion. So, even if it was, everybody talks about the 49 billion, but the 12 billion is later mentioned The Senate has to investigate, and using consultants, the senators and they don't see the money. Government has to use, he doesn't even allow me to say that. So President Jonathan, that Nigeria lost $49.8 billion. I don't believe that. I say, well, Your Excellency, you know, Germany, the economy is quite strong. So 49.8 just about 50 billion. So the economy is strong. So if you lose $50 billion, you will not notice it. But in Nigeria, if we lose $50 billion, the federal government, the state government will not be able to reserve. So we just turn and look at and say, well, if in Germany, $50 billion is a lot of money. And I'm not absolutely correct.
So that said, we're talking in this governance meeting about trust, right? And what is it that makes building trust possible? What is it that allows a social contract between the state and society to happen, even in the midst of all the stories? But I think the biggest story for people is their daily experience. It's what they experience, not necessarily what they read. You know, you come from an oil-producing part of Nigeria. I happen to have gone to school in that region. And I remember, this is college, times when we would see the gas flaring in the region. This was at Abraka. And yet we didn't have power to study. This is what I would walk away with. You know, it's like there is extraction happening right here in front of me, but the dividends are not impacting my life. This is the story that people have that creates this sense of mistrust. Whatever the facts are of the story, the fact is people are not experiencing the benefits of the resources that they see daily being extracted, even sometimes from their communities. And this is Africa over, whether you're talking about DRC, or you're talking about South Sudan, or you're talking about Nigeria. And today, when the world has gone transactional, we're now talking about, will African leaders in negotiating, say, critical minerals, which is a what qualities do African leaders need most to be effective peace builders today? We're looking for jobs for former presidents so that we can actually lead. So if you can sort of give us some insights on life after the presidency, and what you would advise those who are in power, contemplating, maybe also conceding, what qualities they would need or what opportunities are there for them to continue to make their legacy.
Thank you. I raised a lot of things I hope I've been able to cover. You have left office as the president, you got to the president and said, please, this people don't take everything to be right. Spread it. Look at you and look at this hypocrites. He said, I should give you some life examples. I think Moyo is here. When we had some issues in Guinea, when Abercrombie wanted to amend the constitution after finishing his first 10 years, I wanted to amend the constitution for another 12 years. And there was so much tension in the country. He, through the NDI, came to for us to go, they mobilized us for us to go and have a conversation with President Alpha Conde. I remember we had a side house. But many were walking in that night and they were talking to themselves with that, oh, President Jonathan. The hearing that President Jonathan in room calmed the atmosphere. And that at least we've come to listen to them. And this is a man that will surely say the truth to government because passed through, we had a conversation with the leader, we were able to convince them to dispatch the youth. So sometimes the personal reaction, when we went to the Botswana election, Botswana, the ruling party that just lost the election was there for 58 years. From independence, only one party that was able to rule. And before the election, they said the president had left. They said, Jonathan, you were the president of the
Mic to the gentleman in front and then over there, and then maybe I'll take one lady over here. Yes.
Excellencies, thank you very much, Mr. President. My name is Senator Abdul Ningi, and I'm a senator in the Nigerian Parliament. Mr. President, let me most profoundly say I'm so proud of you. Your opening speech has actually made our days here. Mr. President, recalled when you were in power, I was in the Senate, but of course, the deputy Senate leader, we had majority both in the House of Reps and in the Senate, and